Sam, welcome to the Leaders Who Care series.
Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
This is gonna be an interesting one because I want to see. I loved talking to Alex in one of our Leaders Who Care videos, and now you're under the spotlight now to see if you can do and be just as interesting as your 9-year-old daughter.
Impossible.
Well, at least you've got a good frame of life. That's good.
Yeah.
So best way to start.
She
Um,
eclipses me every day. There's no, you know,
well, they
I
say the
live in her
best.
shadow now.
They say the best legacy, the best of everything is when you can get your kids doing even better and better and better. And it's funny you bring that up. It's logical, but it's not necessarily the difference in our feelings of our accomplishments versus our kids' accomplishments. Our kids' accomplishments far surpass the excitement that we have, I believe, of any accomplishment. And sometimes you think, well, our accomplishments, and then of course the kids, but I know my kids' accomplishments get me way more excited than mine. And
Yeah, that tracks. I can totally see that.
yeah. So let's have you tell a little bit about yourself. And I have to put an asterisk with guys, especially, not what your title is or what you do or whatnot. The question really is where you're from originally, where you are now, whatever you feel comfortable talking about your family. What's something you've never told anybody you want to reveal to the world now? That can always be fun. Tell us a little
Hmm.
bit about Sam. First of all, is it Sam or is it Samuel
It's
or what?
Sam. I mean, Samuel's like on my passport.
Okay.
It's Sam.
That's not the one with Trump's picture in it, is it?
Are they doing that now?
Yes. Yes, there
I know my passport's very old. Like it's expires next year.
mine too.
The RFID chip doesn't work anymore.
Mine too. So tell
I'm
us
almost
about
out of space
Sam.
for stamps. It's terrible.
Yeah, no, I know. That's a terrible thing. All those experiences. What a bummer. Um, so you already gave us a hint that you travel a lot, but tell us where you're from.
I'm from Chicago, the center of the universe, which is where I live now. But in between, I'm very lucky. I've lived in New York, San Francisco, Seattle, Tel Aviv, but Chicago's home.
I forgot a lot of my Hebrew, but is it Atami Diberet Ivrit or is it the other way? Can't remember.
I mean, it's you did the female version, but other than that, you're
Okay.
spot on.
Oh, great. So it's Atami Diberet then it is.
Ken,
Ken, okay. I forgot so much of my Hebrew, but and
any
so
Israelis listening to this now have already disconnected because they can't stand listening to Hebrew in like a thick Chicago accent.
well, I have the same thing with my Montreal, Quebec accent in French, and the people in France do not like it at all. So, but what are you going to do? You just live. Um,
In
so,
Chicago, the R is the most important letter in the alphabet. We're the super fans, but in French or Hebrew, they just roll over it like it doesn't exist. So listening to us is like fingernails on a chalkboard.
I don't know. That's the worst. I like the R. Those are the
Yeah,
ones
they do a
that,
good job.
yeah. So I get it. A little bit about your family. You have siblings. Tell us where's your family from originally, things like that.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, how far back you want to go? I mean,
The questions get easier as we go along.
oh great. Everyone's from Eastern Europe, came here through Canada or the U.S.
Yes.
The Glassenbergs have been in Chicago for quite a while. I think like the earliest ones came in like the mid to 1800s, like 1870s or something. Like the first pogroms started happening, and they were like, we're out now. They didn't
Okay.
hang around to see how bad it was going to get. They were out,
Smart.
and everyone else came after that.
Smart. Okay. Do you have brothers, sisters?
Yeah, I got two younger brothers, and my family's all doctors. My grandfather was a famous doctor. Both my parents. I'm the idiot who went into video games.
Well, that must have been interesting. I'm going to ask that in a bit, though. So, um, what were you like growing up as a kid with your siblings? Were you a lemonade stand entrepreneur? Were you a reader? Were you a take things apart and build them again? What
Yeah,
thought?
I was a tinkerer. So I love making things. Um, a lot of computer stuff. Um, I
No
got
Legos?
really into digital art. Sorry?
No Legos?
No, lots of Legos, like endless Legos. I think if you walk around my parents' house, you'll still step on some.
Oh, good to know.
So yeah, no, of course, lots of Legos, but that like just goes with there was kids in the '90s. But yeah, things that I started like in junior high school, even started like playing around with computer animation, which was kind of nuts because I mean, Toy Story I think came out was 1995, would have been like my freshman year of high school.
No.
And I started doing computer animation like very early as a hobby. Was very lucky.
Why?
Uh, why?
Yeah.
I mean, I started like I think I saw the movie Toy Story and was just blown away by this idea that you could recreate reality on a computer. That someone could come up with an idea of a story they want to tell. Instead of having to draw each frame by hand, you could just recreate it in 3D and
Hmm.
then make it. Now, the computers were super slow back then, so you couldn't do very much. But I immediately just started like using it as a tool to start telling stories and making little animations. I think like maybe my junior year of high school, Lester Holt was on like the local, like he was on the local Chicago news,
Wow.
CBS or NBC or something. So they actually like someone saw one of my videos and I ended up on like the local Chicago news because I had made some animation about something. I think it was like the Golem story or something, like a Jewish fairy tale, and
That's awesome.
garnered some attention because it's like some high school kid like making stuff that was not Pixar quality, but remember, like Toy Story had just come out, so the idea of
Yeah.
doing computer animation was very new, and I was able to make things by myself that was actually fairly compelling for the time.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic, but you also must have had an imagination back then. I mean, you still do, but back then.
So yes, I used to have an anime. I used to have an imagination back then. We
I
played
can't
computer
even
games.
imagine. Um,
What that must have been like.
but were you, did you say brothers?
Yeah, I had two younger brothers. I have two younger brothers.
Were they the same or did they do different things?
All different things. Different things. They we're all like the three of us, generally like great academically, but different interests.
So did
Uh,
they both go the doctor route?
no, but they went one went the humanities route. He's like I can hardly speak English. He speaks like eight languages. He's one of these guys where he takes a stopover in Lisbon and for 2 hours and comes out speaking Portuguese.
Yeah, I'm so jealous of people like that because I love languages, but it takes more for me to learn it thoroughly than somebody just picks it up in a day and a half. That's crazy.
Lately, I've been trying to hack these word games that I'm addicted to. Now we have AI. I'm trying to hack these word games that I'm addicted to. So, like, in order to play them, um, I need to give the translation in a language I'm trying to learn to like slowly see if I can like hack my compulsion loops to train my brain to, learn words in other languages. But I'm terrible at it.
You know, at some point we're all going to have chips and it's all going to be transmitted. We probably don't even have to open our mouth anymore. I'm not sure. Or
Shut up and take my money. Sign me up.
something okay. We won't have to practice active listening anymore, I guess, and stuff like that. So obviously, I guess going into school after high school, college, and you were already pretty well decided the direction you wanted to go.
Not really.
Hmm.
I knew I liked computer animation. I did for college. I did computer engineering, so I knew I was going to do something
Hmm.
related to this stuff. Um, I applied. The way I ended up in the video games industry was purely by accident. I applied at Pixar and DreamWorks and ILM. I wanted to do feature animation. So I sent in my like reel of little hobby animations. I remember I wasn't an art student, so I just like had done animation as a hobby. Sent in my reel on like a VHS tape. Ended up getting a call back from Lucasfilm saying there wasn't anything for me in the movie department, but the games department they thought I'd be a good fit for. So I said great. So I went over to LucasArts and Star Wars. It was the best time to be there. It was right between like episode one and episode two.
Man.
So I was working at LucasArts, and I was the only engineer on the art team. So I'm
Wow.
literally getting paid to fly spaceships for a living, to like animate cutscenes for Star Wars video games. And but I'm super lucky. I'm working with the most talented artists in the world, and I quickly realized that no matter how much I invest in my craft, I am never going to be as talented as they are. So, but I'm an engineer, so I'm watching them encounter all of these problems that they can't fix because we were making games for like PlayStation 2. This was like around 2000, 2001. It was very limited hardware. So they wanted to be able to have, objects that cast shadows, and they wanted to bring in assets from the movies, and they wanted to have planets that you could fly around that were curved, and none of the tools supported what they wanted. And I was like, wait a minute, I can fix that. Sit down, write some code. Here you go. And then I discovered that was my calling in life, not to be a great artist, but instead to make sure that the technology did not get in the way of more talented artists' creative vision.
Hmm.
Right? So an artist wants to create something, they have a vision of a universe or story they want to tell. How do you make sure they can create that? And whether it's the art tools or the computer hardware or later on the business doesn't get in the way of what they want to do.
What a great opportunity. I mean, teams win, I always do a lot of sports analogies. Teams win championships. So got a team going there and you won the Star Wars championships.
Oh, and we talk about game development. I mean, these teams at that point were graduating from tens of people to hundreds of people. So you're trying to like games is the ultimate interdisciplinary team exercise of artists, engineers, designers, all working together to create this, 40 to 80 hours of interactive experience, that takes you on an emotional journey where, you're the hero and you're the main character and you're in full control and there's physics and the graphics look amazing and it's fantastic.
And so how does it feel to when it's like an actor with a movie, some of them watch the movie, some of them never watch themselves in a movie. How does it feel to watch something that you've been involved in the development of?
I mean, I find it super rewarding. I mean, when you're obviously sometimes, depending on the scenario, you may have played the game that just launched. You might have played through it 100 times. You might already be kind of sick of it. You know it really
Right.
well. There is, though, the thrill of watching your friends play your game. And then, especially so later on, I ran a company that did games for Hollywood movies, and there was just incredible watching. We had games played by tens of millions of people and you watch. I remember my first company, we did games for Mission Impossible, Power Rangers, Hunger Games, Rocky, Narcos, and you'd look at the server, fans of the Hunger Games who would spend, maybe 2, 3 hours watching the movie would spend 100 hours playing the game. And
When did
so,
that happen that because I always had movies and as in everything it develop technology develops and stuff. When did that happen that somebody said we could make a game out of this movie. We can do some great stuff with this movie, which was obviously going to be great for the movie, producers and investors too.
so it's interesting because I mean that started in the '80s. I mean, early in the '80s, you had movie-based games from the very beginning. I think that one of the problems that they ran into was movie-based games ended up on kind of a nasty cycle where what would happen is this actually happened more than once. Where basically what would happen is the movie studios would or whoever was doing it would realize that the game publishers would realize that they would do the math and discover that the success of a game correlated only to the success of the movie and not to, let's say, the Metacritic score or the actual quality of the game. And so what would start happening is they would drop the budgets on the game
Hmm.
until the quality level of movie-based games would get so low. I mean, this was known like there was an ET game in the '80s that had this reputation, and then this happened again in the 2000, late 2000s, where basically people just learned that eventually this bites you because eventually the audience learns that no matter how excited you are about the movie, the game is going to suck. And so, one of the ways one of my companies was able to basically overcome this is we were one of the first studios to make games for social, like movie-based games for Facebook, and then for mobile. And there, the advantage was those are the first games that were free to play. So instead of paying $50 up front for a video game, you didn't know how good it was. With free to play, the game was free and you would spend money for additional content or things in the game. So what that meant was that was a great way to revive movie-based games because you could come in and start playing. There was no barrier to entry, and only if the game was fun would you spend money. And so that started a renaissance of movie-based games around 15 years ago. And now I think consistently there have been some really good ones.
Kind of reminds me of, I read the book, you should watch the movie type of deal. So I watched the movie, then I wanted to play the game. Did it ever get to the play the game and then, wow, I got to watch the movie?
I think on a few. So in our case, it did because again, the game was free. So if you were playing the Mission Impossible game on Facebook with your friends, you started doing it a month before the movie came out.
Hmm.
So we would reveal little elements of the story. In the Hunger Games universe, the game actually spanned the entire trilogy. So, and we were revealing things in between the movies. We revealed the official map of Panem, which had never been revealed before in the books. We revealed it in the video game. And so there were all these sort of interesting opportunities to keep the audience engaged and to tell like parts of the story, for example, that Suzanne Collins like didn't have enough time to tell in the movie or the books. So it ended up being like a cool storytelling medium
Yeah,
and driving people into the theaters.
yeah. I was going to say, yeah, it's a win-win-win for everybody there. And have um, when did you start? When did you start feeling? I don't know if that's the right word. That this had even more impact than just entertainment.
Oh, the how we ended up in medical games.
Right.
Yeah, that was a pure accident. I would love to take credit for that. I would love to say that, Games for Doctors was some grand idea that I had, but it was parental guilt and luck. So I have what my art team like made me images for this, but basically, like I said, like I come from a family of doctors. Um, I have and I was the first disgrace that didn't go to medical school. I like to tell this story. So in 2006, I accepted a technical Emmy on behalf of my team at Microsoft for pushing the cutting edge of video game graphics. That was me. That was Jensen Wang. It's the technical
I know.
Emmys.
I was
You know
just
the
saying.
technical Emmys. It's not the one they show on TV, but it's the same statue. That's me and Jensen Wang accepting on behalf of his team. Why? Because the graphics chips that are now the basis of the AI revolution, what were they built for? Video games. So I call home to be like, hey, my team, we're accepting a technical Emmy. And my dad answers the phone. He's an anesthesiologist. And without skipping a beat, he goes, Sam, that's very nice. But in this family, we only recognize Nobel Prizes. He goes, stop wasting your time, go to medical school. So this is the universe that I come from. A few years later, he gave up. He said, all right, Sam, put all this gaming nonsense to good use. You're too old for med school. Make me a game to train my colleagues to do a fiber optic intubation.
Wow.
It's a tricky procedure. It's a tricky procedure. Like, people struggle with it. Um, and I don't want to drag anyone to a training center. Can you just make me a game they can play on their phones? So I'm busy running like this big Hollywood game studio. Sure, Dad. So I sit down for 3 weekends and I throw together this crappy little game for him that I upload to the App Store and I don't think about it again. And then 2 years later, he calls me. Hey, Sam, how many people downloaded it? Dad, I don't know how many of your friends downloaded your fiber optic laryngoscopy game, but I will check for you. So I went on iTunes and I looked. There are 100,000 doctors, nurses, and airway specialists who've been playing. And I look like games industry. I made games played by tens of millions of people, but in healthcare, this has never been done. So I Google it to try to understand what happened, and I discover, unbeknownst to me, they've been doing efficacy studies at hospitals all over the world that showed this terrible little game I made for my dad was substantially improving physician performance. So it was not some grand vision, it was pure accident. And it was okay, all right, there's demand for this. Clearly, like people need this. Okay, so what if it wasn't just me? What if we took the top video game developers, artists, designers who've worked on everything from Mortal Kombat to Diner Dash and team them up with physician advisors across the country to do this to advance the practice of medicine through play. So that's it. So like that's been the last 10 years. Built two companies this way. Both were acquired. Millions of medical professionals earning continuing education credit while they cut, cauterize, inject, diagnose, treat, manage patients. These companies are working with all the big med device and life science companies, all the medical societies, NASA. We launched a game on the SpaceX mission a few months ago. So we're having a lot of fun.
But it makes so much sense. I've been involved in sports for years, and when I was younger, I was taught visualization before any computers and stuff. and it really worked in a lot of different ways. And I've coached after and used visualization. It's the same thing except with games, right?
Yeah. Well, that's when you talk about coach, like that's a game, right?
Right.
But if you think about it, and think athletes, for example, like how do you measure, like how do you get the optimal state to be learning, and how do you measure performance? Flow state? You can measure flow state on an MRI, right? You gotta, if you're at the perfect balance of challenge and skill, you get in this flow state, and you get neuroplasticity, and you get top performance. The same thing is true for a surgeon. And so, how do you get somebody into that flow state? How do you train them to do that? Same thing with someone who's playing a well balanced video game. So, it's the same neuroscience.
And isn't it, I don't know, proven's the right word, but the hand-eye coordination of working playing on a game is actually improved to potentially be a surgeon or potentially do medical stuff.
The crazy thing, they've actually measured surgeons, if they play a video game, like not, Wordle, but like a Twitch video game before they go into surgery, like anytime that, like early before, it's not even a medical game, just like a regular Twitch video game, their performance in surgery is better.
It's like warming up for a game.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the same. It is this, it's a lot of the same circuitry.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about that because I find it fascinating because I compare a lot of things to sports. I'm not a genius on the tech thing or even playing games necessarily. But what was the reaction in the medical world? It seems like it was spectacular to um, for people to who want to be. I mean, is it taken up in education now? I guess is what I'm trying to say. To play video games as part of your education to get into the medical world at all? Are they taking advantage of it that way?
So my companies have not targeted medical students just because of our business model, not because there isn't need, just because our focus has been on continuing education. So doctors earning continuing education credit. That being said, I think we looked once. Half the medical students in the US usually have at least one of my company's games on their phones. So medical students are using it, but we're not building it for them. Generally, what we're building is content to, assuming you're already a doctor, like we're not going to teach you how to become a doctor. Assuming you already are one, we're going to let you sit down and play through, 5 lifetimes of difficult cases in an hour or two. But the need is there. The need is there across the board, from medical education to late stage medical education to patient education to nurse education. Everyone is learning through play, but usually they're not. The only thing they're given to play with is a live human being. Like that's how you learn. You make mistakes. You try different approaches. Like that's how your brain works. We've evolved to learn this way. So if you can replace that with an actual video game, everyone's happy. Everyone's happy.
Yeah, didn't I remember them saying, "Oh, I think that people are playing too much time on there," but then they found out that it was good for hand-eye coordination. They found that it was good for preparing and all that stuff.
Like anything else, right? What is YouTube good for education? Well, I don't know. Like I've learned more about quantum physics and history from watching YouTube in the last year than I ever learned in class.
Mhm.
But there's also unboxing videos. So, it's a medium. It's a powerful force. You can use it for good or evil. And that's up to the content creator.
Continuing on the lines of how games are influencing medical and how games are just influencing people in general. And we talked about visualization as a basic form of games that I had when I was a little kid, a coach teaching me. I had the pleasure, obviously, of chatting with your daughter, Alex, and you should be super proud of her. Her mom has done a great job with her and stuff. So,
Through
but
that.
and all the stuff that she's doing, which you'll hear coming up on another Leaders Who Care Youth part that Alex is going to show up. But talk about the story I saw you talk about it. But was it eye convergence and sufficiency and
Yeah.
that whole story with Alex?
Sure. So this is interesting. This is really sort of enabled, well, by an 8-year-old and AI. So yeah, so Alex, like many kids, she suffers, as she mentioned, from eye convergence insufficiency. A lot of 8-year-olds, kids, it's not uncommon. You may know a kid who has it. You get double vision or sometimes blurry vision when things get close.
Isn't that where our
Uh,
moms told us if we keep crossing our eyes, they're going to stay that way?
Maybe it's possible. It's possible the two are related. Also possible that one is real
Right.
and the but yeah, so this one's real. This one's real. And so the doctor prescribed these boring exercises that you had to do. They give her these like red blue glasses, and you have to do these exercises with the glasses. And she refused, like she wouldn't comply. She refused. They're super boring. It was I don't blame her. Like it was, and software is fairly expensive. So she tried it a couple times. I was like, nope. So I said, all right, kiddo, let's make a video game with the glasses. What do you want to play with these? You want to do, whatever you want, Tetris, Pong. And, she's 8. She goes, I want to play Guitar Hero. I want to play it with Taylor Swift songs. And I want to call it Music Eye. So she and I sat down with Claude Code. It's like ChatGPT, right? It's a coding agent.
Hmm.
For a Sunday afternoon, we built a game. Like I literally just, I gave it to her. She would say, "Oh, Daddy, I want this." I'd be like, "Okay, type it in." She goes, "Daddy, I feel like I'm being bossy." That's how it's supposed to be. Go. So I mean, you saw her. She makes this game, um, and basically, like as your eyes. I mean, the way it works is, as you start playing the game like moves toward you. The red and blue separate. So if you lose focus because your eyes can't converge, you can't play the game and you start losing. You miss the notes. And so it starts going back again. So it keeps you, she ended up building this thing that happens to keep you in the zone of proximal development. Like and she added all these features. I don't know what she wanted. She added like streaks and high scores, like all this stuff. She picked all these K-pop songs and Taylor Swift songs, and she played the crap out of her own game. And then eventually I took her to the eye doctor. I think it was like 2 months ago, and she's cured. She cured herself.
No.
No more convergence insufficiency. Um, so yeah, that like no one has any excuse anymore. This is now with AI, like you can. This is I guess what's called a digital therapeutic. She's gotten some interest from some eye doctors to actually maybe do an efficacy study. She's very excited about the prospect of, helping out other kids who have this problem. That's exciting stuff.
Well, you talked a little bit before about rewiring your brain, and I hear a lot of that conversation, um, even in sports. And I'm, you know, that's my thing is, and great coaches that didn't know any of this stuff before, but had a basic common sense of what if we did, what if we did this, we did that. Um, I think in my layman terms that AI probably will have the biggest impact on healthcare by far.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything, healthcare for sure, as well as just the way it's like our kids are growing up in a world where, we grew up, right? If you wanted to make something, it was impossible. Like if you wanted to make a toy that resembles anything you would buy in the store, it required millions of dollars of equipment and years of experience. And now like Alex goes like, "Oh, I want to design this character or I want to make this." She sits down with some 3D software, pushes a button, and it 3D prints for her. Or oh, like now her thing now is making games. Like she'll come to me, she'll go, "Daddy, I want to play." She'll come with some ad she sees, and she's, "Daddy, I saw this game for whatever, dragon merging dragons. Daddy, can you buy this for me?" I go, "No, open up Gemini or whatever the AI agent you want, make the game." And she does. And she's like, now she runs off. She's making all these like she made one last night. She's like making all these super fun games that like her friends are playing. They like have leaderboards and they save game to the cloud and all this functionality. I don't even know how she does some of it. Uh, and she's just like, this is her thing now. She'll sit down for like 3 hours, 4 hours, like make a game, keep adding features, adding capabilities, new mechanics. It's really creative stuff. And some of her sisters play. She plays with her friends. They're a lot of fun.
So it's all, my other core business is executive search and finding the best talent for our clients. Um, I'm just kind of thinking out loud right now about, when people do their resumes, they do responsibilities. We don't do that. We want experiences that they've got that they bring to the table. It seems to me that the things you're talking about are going to be paramount in the experiences that they bring to the table for any of their own businesses or companies or community stuff or anything.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm in the boat of hiring, over the last few years, I don't know, maybe hundreds of people, like interviewing many more than that. The last few years, yeah, I mean, if one of the, as far as I'm concerned, the criteria for people at any level is aggressive fearless use of AI. I kind of
Right.
feel like at this point, early on, I get it, but like at this point, several years in, like if you're not aggressively using this stuff and you're waiting for someone to tell you what to do with it, like you lack the intellectual curiosity that I need on my team.
What would you advise, going off, it's not really off topic, it's more on, what would you advise an entrepreneur, forget about even a corporate executive right now, an entrepreneur whose expertise is not tech, but they've got a different expertise of creating something. Obviously, the best leaders that I know just get the best people around them because, again, teams win championships. Um, do you think you could be a leader of a new venture or company or whatnot without knowing extensively AI, or in the future? Absolutely.
Without knowing tech, yes, I think there's examples for that. Without knowing AI, you're at a massive disadvantage. A massive disadvantage. Intelligence is now, I don't say is a commodity, but it's getting there, right? You basically have your competition has an unlimited supply of interns with all of human knowledge at their disposal, right? They understand everything from, employment law to like product design to, every best business practice. They understand the market, they can do deep research. Your competition is using that. If you're not using that and you're just forget forget execution. I don't even know how you would raise money if assuming you need capital for your business. Like it's just, the world we're living now is super exciting. Building a company is now much easier than it was. You don't need to hire every single piece of expertise and hire a contractor or expertise. AI will
Right.
provide like a huge set of those services for you. But if you're not going to touch it or you're not
Of
going to
course.
go deep with it, then you're at a big disadvantage.
No, it's quite amazing in in our lifetimes what we've actually seen. Um, that's that and it's going to be on steroids what the next generation sees probably beyond us. Tell me, update a little bit on what you're doing now, and also I forgot to talk about diabetes. Talk about your involvement there.
Sure. So my other daughter was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes 5 years ago. I don't know. Are you familiar with type 1?
A little bit.
Yeah. So, and basically, I'm in the middle of this games for doctors journey. The way it works is on Friday, your life is normal. And then on Saturday, you're responsible for injecting precisely calculated doses of a lethal drug, insulin, into your kid 20 times a day. And if you get the dosing wrong, she falls into a coma. It's like ridiculously stressful when you first
Hmm.
get started. And I shudder like when I look at this. After 48 hours at, one of the best children's hospitals in the Midwest, this is what they give you as you leave the hospital. Like this is your guide to not killing your own kid.
Hmm.
Always give insulin for carbohydrates before dosing. Here's your carbohydrate to insulin ratios and rounding rules. And this is how you're going to dose this drug every time you inject. Only give a correction dose of insulin if it's been at least 3 hours since the last. Like, what does any of this mean? I mean, eventually, after months of learning this through a lot of which was trial and error on your own kid, which is a terrible experience. After months, I finally developed a mental model of this. I finally, like, my brain understood insulin glucose dynamics. Like, well, this is ridiculous. We can fix this. The best way to develop mental models of a complex system, as we've been talking about, is through play. All right, so how do we allow you to learn this through play in a video game instead of on your own kid? So we launched this over the summer. It's called Level One. It trains your brain how to manage type 1 diabetes, and it does it in hours instead of months. Everything you need to know. So there's 60 levels. Each one's like 2 to 3 minutes long. You play the entire game with your thumb. It looks like Candy Crush because everyone plays Candy Crush. Teaches you everything: how to dose insulin, how to count carbs, how to manage exercise and ketones when you're sick, everything. We launched this thing, like I said, months ago. 50,000 newly diagnosed type 1 diabetics and their caregivers are playing. Like we have changed the way type 1 diabetes onboarding is done, in the United States and one by one different countries around the world. So it's been very fulfilling. And I look and I think, how many other, this is not the only problem that looks like this.
Right.
There are other problems that look like this could be solved with stealing the techniques that we've developed in the entertainment industry.
Yeah, no, congrats on that. It's for people who the whole thing is about access, right? And I think that's what you're giving right now, and that overused word already, democratizing. But we're not only rich people get to get taken care of, if you will, if I can put it that way. And if you're giving access to young people and to families who just need someone to help them explain what's going on and what to do, rather than being overwhelmed all the time, it's a spectacular achievement.
Yeah, I think that what's been interesting for me going through this process, because we work with hundreds of endocrinologists to like perfect the game and tune it and make sure it's giving, the right, everything's correct. And what I started discovering talking to some of these, you know, um, hospitals in Chicago, my daughter's life expectancy is actually longer than average if her diabetes is well managed. If you're on the south side of Chicago, and you have limited numeracy, limited access to care, like type 1 diabetes becomes like completely, it's a death sentence in your 30s. Like in your 30s, you could be blind and on dialysis completely unnecessarily.
Yeah.
And you really realize the scope of the problem. But again, like, now obviously there are other contributing factors there, but, if we could save a few ER visits and some diabetes related stress and get people in better range, like that's a huge win.
Yeah, I saw a documentary a little while back about a young gal, 19, 20 maybe 20. And I'm a partner with Tower Capital, and we talk about generational health and everything. And she said my grandparents had died, and we're talking about nutrition. I wasn't the interviewer, was talking about nutrition. And she said my grandparents had diabetes, my parents have diabetes. I'm going to get it anyway, so who cares at this point?
Well, that's type 2, which is a different,
Right, but the
little bit of different can
mindset,
of beans, but it's a similar, just like, oh yeah, there's inevitability. It's like, no, there's interventions that you could, if you change
right?
your diet, and just having it, you can also stave it off. You can slow it down. Like there's a lot of things, there are a lot of interventions that work. And then when you have to start intervening with medication, understanding it. So actually, based on the success of level one, my company's, we were acquired by Relevate Health a year and a half ago. They're starting to like realizing the potential of games for patients, are starting to develop a game for type 2 diabetes too. Different game, but similar idea. It's like if you can educate patients, you can really give them agency they didn't have before.
Yeah, and in an easy way where they don't feel condescended upon, but they're getting information um, that can make a difference to them. Because sometimes people are even afraid to ask the doctor a question because they're going to look dumb or something, you know?
It's also it's like when you're in a moment of stress, you can't learn.
Right,
And it isn't the doctor's fault. Like the resources that doctors are given, the time doctors are given with patients is very limited. The
right.
resources that they're given to work with patients are terrible. And, they're doing the best they can. So, it falls to the rest of like, all right, let's help them out and let's give them the tools that they need. I mean, the embrace of level one by the medical community has been incredibly rapid. If you give doctors great tools, they'll use it.
Yeah, no, I think it's fantastic for all sorts of reasons. You talked about and I saw it really quick when I was looking at it. I'm trying to, is it you were saying you were having polyphasic sleep? Is that what it's called?
Oh, that was just this past week in
I know, but it still caught my attention. I
Nice.
had never heard that term, and I know sleep is a big deal for your health. But I've heard of power naps. I just hadn't heard that term yet.
Yeah, there's this whole thing where people try to like get themselves into this thing where you like take 20-minute naps every few hours and you don't. So I wasn't quite there, but I was like taking these very short sleeps and being awake and giving talks and in sessions and attend. It was not healthy and I do not recommend it.
Right. Well, you know, we say in LA that you got to keep the audience wanting more, so we can do a sequel. So we may have to do a sequel. But I got one comment and one other question for you. The comment was, I'm fascinating and appreciative of what you're doing, and it still brings me back to when I was a kid, and none of this was there. In fact, when I was a kid. I mean, they were using well, even after I was a kid, punch cards in the computer room of my university and stuff like that. And so, but the basics were still there about, like I mentioned, visualization, taking care of yourself and whatnot. Except for the companies that fed us Frosted Flakes and every other piece of crap that we ate that our parents didn't know it was bad for us to eat and
They're
stuff.
still
So.
feeding it now.
And I did actually see a few months ago a Frosted Flakes and Fruit Loops commercial on TV, and I said, "You got to be kidding! You're still advertising this stuff?" I don't believe it. So, but congrats on all you do, and you're making a big difference. And I wanted to ask you, COVID sometimes these days feels like for some people it was yesterday and years ago, all at the same time. And it's already halfway through almost the 2026. So with everything that's gone on, what are you most grateful for, and what are you most hopeful for?
Um, I mean, what am I most grateful for? Uh, Happy, well balanced children. Does that seem reasonable?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've met one of them.
Yeah.
Um, so like having daughters that play well with their friends, but then sometimes just want to be alone to imaginate, as they say, and come up with ideas. And all my daughters are creative and different. They channel their creativity in different ways. But smart, creative, passionate, and so I'm very, very grateful for that. And and with the like the little health things that come up, the diabetes or whatever, it's like having the resources and the tools to manage them. Also, I'm very grateful for. Like this is the best time in all of human history to have type 1 diabetes, for example.
Yeah, I know a young man that I had on the leadership care in youth, just like Alex, but he was older. He wrote a couple of kids' books because it was during COVID and they thought he had COVID and everything, and but he had diabetes and he almost died with what was going on there. And but he wrote a couple of kids' books on how to look out for what you may have, type of thing, which was cool. What are you most hopeful for?
What am I most hopeful for? I mean, I'm hopeful that AI will arc us in we hear a lot about the dis the well, we know what the apocalyptic direction of AI looks like because we've seen movies. I think there's a lot of concern that it's going to move us in the dystopian direction, which is certainly possible. I'm not saying it's not, but I think if it does arc us in the utopian direction, that's a very exciting future to be in, where we're able to solve problems that we have as a society or civilization have tried to solve for a very long time. And I think that uh, having the prospect of having robots and intelligence that can put us on Mars or repair all the streets and improve quality of life, I think is I think if how do I put this, if the people who index high on the fulfillment scale, right, the if the if, we know the bad actors are using it. So if the good actors, right, the people that otherwise are spending the majority of their waking hours doing things they find fulfilling, if those people, because of their existential angst, right, and their moral scruples, won't touch AI because they're worried, then we know it's going to arc the bad way. But if they embrace it, we'll arc it in the good direction, and I think it could do wonderful things.
Yeah,
As you've
that's
seen, just like my daughter armed with AI, like cured herself. That's just one tiny example. Like we're scratching the surface here.
Yeah, well, to use another sports analogy, when the players realize that the system the coach brought them works if they work together and they win championships, then they buy in. So
Hmm.
if there's enough good leaders out there that keep promoting it, and leaders aren't just heads of countries, they're people like you, me, and others, and people like Alex, the young kids that people can see them doing it, then I think the future's great too. So I'm grateful and hopeful for the same thing. Well, I'm grateful I have a new friend. So that's good. Two new
Likewise.
friends, one nine and one whatever you are. And and
Older than nine.
but I'm grateful that you are a leader who cares and doing stuff that's making a difference. So kudos to you and thanks for being a leader who cares and for being on the series.
Thank you, and thanks for spreading the word.